Hello, I'm Jessica Vasello, and this is my process video for my future self-portrait project. I hope you enjoy hearing about the process and the steps that I had to take in order to complete the final product. Have fun watching! The beginning of this project started with making this list that you see here of 10 things that I want for my future. And then I started drawing symbols that went along with the words. So pictures to represent the things that I wanted for my future. I took a picture of some of the ones that were my favorite drawings that I might use on the front. I'm now on the front of my paper and I started to sketch out my 5 things that I want for my future. Here you can see me drawing a graduation cap, and this is one of those times where I was drawing something but had to erase a lot because I couldn't get the shape quite right. I was having a hard time getting the perspective of the top of the hat correct, and later I realized that I drew the bottom of the graduation cap wrong as well, and I kind of adjusted it to have more of a point underneath of it. Here I drew a picture of a toy train, and you can see me in this video drawing a picture of a rainbow, like a wooden block rainbow that would stack together. I chose to draw this to represent having children in my future and starting a family. So instead of like drawing an actual family or drawing children, I instead chose to draw children's toys. So I drew a train and a wooden stacking rainbow, and eventually I'm going to draw children's blocks, like little letter blocks, to represent that I want to have children and a family one day. Here you can see the finished picture that represents having a family one day, and in this next picture you see how I've edited the graduation cap. This leads into my favorite drawing that I did, or my favorite visual representation of something I want for my future, and that is the picture of the national park logo with the map and the plane. I think that this visual really helped me to combine a couple things: that I love to travel and that I want to visit all the national parks. And I think I like it so much because it has a lot of layers to it. Like, I layered up the pictures. The map is kind of behind the plane, and the plane is behind the logo. And 2 that I haven't talked about yet. One is that I want to have a pottery studio one day, and that's the picture for that, and that I want to be a children's book illustrator, and that's the image for that. After I finished drawing, I started watercolor painting, and I started with the background. I chose a pretty light color so that it didn't distract from my objects when I just started to paint them. When painting my objects, one thing that kind of went wrong and I learned from pretty quickly was that the colors are going to bleed together if I paint 2 wet colors next to each other. So I tried to jump around the painting, giving things time to dry. So I painted a little bit on the hat and then came back to the hat and painted the tassel later, and I painted a little bit on my pottery studio image and then came back to it later after painting something else somewhere on the artwork. So that's something that I learned, that you might need to jump around the painting in order to avoid painting wet paint next to wet paint, because when you do, it bleeds together. A technique that I really liked using in the watercolor painting was a wet on wet technique. So you can see it in the sky on the National Park logo and in the vases in the pottery studio. I just painted down wet water, and then on top of it kind of dabbed on the color in order to get a unique texture. Here is my final finished product, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about the process I went through to create this artwork. Thanks for listening.